Hello, my name is Elliot Fontanet. I'm with the Texas Legal Services Center, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. You know, everything's a little bit busy right now. There's a lot going on, so I really thank you for taking the time to just watch and learn and see if you're interested. I just wanted to introduce myself over video real quick, but I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off, and I'm going to show you my screen so I can start the presentation. Video. And share screen. There we go. Okay, you should be seeing my screen now. And let me just check real quick. Give me 1 second. Let's see. And Kristen, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, I can. If you want to just start the PowerPoint presentation so we can't see your headers and everything in the background.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, but I can see it.
Yeah, the headers are fine. Yeah, don't worry about that. But I appreciate it. Okay, so this is the TexasLawHelp.org live chat pro bono orientation for fall 2021. Let's see. My name, like I said, is Elliot Fontanet. I'm Special Projects Managing Attorney. This is my email address. So if you're watching this and you become interested in volunteering, you can email me at livechat@tlsc.org and also efontanet@tlsc.org. My number is 512-477-6000, Section 109. My number is also, my cell number is 832-527-7410. And I just typed that in this box down here. That's going to be the quickest way to get me because my cell phone is basically attached to my hand at this point. So I will probably reply right away. So about Texas Legal Services Center, we're going to talk about TLSC just really quick because the volunteer program is on TexasLawHelp.org, but the organization that administers TexasLawHelp.org and this volunteer program is the Texas Legal Services Center. That's where I'm employed. So the Texas Legal Services Center was founded in 1977. It's a statewide nonprofit organization. We provide advice, advocacy, representation, and education to undeserved people across the state. We have more than a dozen practice areas, and we really, really try to have our work touch almost every aspect of civil law that affects low-income Texans. So the mission of TLSC, and it affects Texas Law Help and it affects this volunteer program, is to ensure equal justice for all Texans by educating, empowering, and representing vulnerable people while reshaping the greater legal system that impacts us all. And one of the things that that's a nice statement, but what it means is, you don't really have equal justice if you don't have equal access to the court system, because the law can say, X, Y, and Z, but if you can't enforce that law, it's not as useful to you as it could be. Like, it's useful in the aggregate because people will try to obey the law, most of them. But if you got a landlord, the Texas Property Code says that the landlord has the responsibility to fix any condition that affects the health and safety of an ordinary tenant. Well, if you have a landlord that just doesn't want to obey that, you don't have, and you can't get to court to force them, that's not equal access to justice. So that's what that mission sort of means. So these are some of the programs that we have, and I'm not going to go too deep into them, but I just, we have programs that run the gambit. So we have programs that will help people get lifetime protective orders, to programs that file in federal court to try to change the law through setting a precedent. And then we have programs like the one you're going to be volunteering for that work to empower self-represent litigants. And so for those who have to represent themselves in the justice system, we offer advice, court-approved legal forms, and instruction on how to best achieve the outcome. This is our Self-Represent Litigants project. And this program is really, really close to my heart because I graduated law school in 2009. I got an internship at TLSC for the fall of 2009. And then I was hired on in 2010 as the attorney that started the Self-Represent Litigants project. So I was the one that started chat, that really got things going. Then I ran it until about 2017, from 2014 to 2017. And then I got promoted again. And now I'm sort of doing this volunteer grant coordinator, like just sort of jack of all trades role. But this is such a unique project, and it does so much good because there are so many people who have to go to court without an attorney. Because when I started at Legal Aid in 2010, Legal Aid could take 2 out of every 10 cases that apply, but due to funding not going up commensurate with inflation and a few other factors, Legal Aid actually only has the funding now for about 1.5 out of 10 that apply. So you have more and more people going to court on their own. So that's what this program tries to help with, and that's something you're going to be helping with if you volunteer. So this is the website. I just want to sort of jump in and show you that real quick, but I can also just show you the website here. This is actually the, let me think. So 1, 2, 3. This is the 4th iteration of the website. We just actually launched this iteration about a month ago. And so this is the most recent version. And I'm gonna show you on the website and give you a bit of more of a tour, but I just wanted to show you real quick. And this little button that says live chat available, this like right here that I'm hovering over, it's a little person. This is how people are going to chat with you online. So let me go back to the presentation. Sorry. The Zoom interface takes a little bit of time to go back up whenever you even hover over it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is poverty. And the reason I'm starting on that is one of the things that I didn't really grasp well enough when I was in law school, that I think law schools are doing a much better job of these days, is really expressing how much of a service job being a lawyer is. Because, it's one thing that it's something that you can sometimes lose sight of. Because, if I, one of the things that you also will learn is one of the worst things you can do, well, not one of the worst, but something that's not an ideal situation is if you're a lawyer just handling your own cases. Like say if you have a problem. So if I have a legal case that I need, say if I had like a contract dispute, I'm going to hire an attorney that's intimately familiar with contract law. So same thing, but that same principle applies to, if in my house, if I have an electrical problem, I'm going to hire an electrician. So people will hire lawyers for the exact same reason they hire a plumber, an electrician. There's a service they need done that they don't know how to do. And when you're in a service industry, the overriding status of the market you serve will really affect what you do. So if you work in mergers and acquisitions and you get out of law school, you work at a big firm and you're doing that work and you're really enjoying it, well, the overall status of that market that you serve is going to affect how many cases you get and the type of cases you get. But for us at Legal Aid, and when you volunteer, what really affects what we do is the aggregate poverty level. And not just the poverty level, but what the people in poverty are currently dealing with. And it's really changed since I've started at Legal Aid. So when I started at Legal Aid in 2010, what was really just burning its way through the system at that point was the mortgage crisis. It was a lot of mortgage foreclosure cases. So it was a lot of trying to work with them to figure out how to negotiate with the mortgage companies, maybe get a mortgage modification, maybe file bankruptcy for the automatic stay, like things like that. And what's going on currently because of the COVID-19 crisis is there's a huge eviction crisis going on right now. So poverty and the nature of poverty affects what we do in the cases we get just completely. So one of the things I like to talk about when we start is poverty. So what is poverty? It took me a while to find this definition, but poverty is really the lack of freedom to have or to do the basic things that you value. And one of the things about this definition, it's like when you read a statute and there's words like may or shall. Those are the words that do the heavy lifting in those statutes. Well, the word that's doing the heavy lifting here is the word basic. So we're not talking about choosing between having Netflix or Hulu. We're talking about, okay, well, am I going to pay my electricity bill? I'm going to pay my gas bill. That's one of the choices that you're put to when you're in poverty. And so if you look at the poverty guidelines, these are the poverty guidelines for 2021. And they say if you're a family of 4 and you make $28,000, you're technically not in poverty. But in my professional opinion, this actually undercounts the problem. So I think we all know if you're making $29,000, say you're making $30,000 and you have a family of 4, you're pretty much living in poverty. Like, because there's expenses that pop up and you're sort of living on that edge, because that's what happens to people who are living in poverty, low income people, is they're sort of making it, they're doing their best, and then something happens that wasn't in their cost structure and it completely messes them up and they fall behind. Like I actually just saw a study on Friday because it was actually Friday at 10 p.m. I was just on Twitter and there was a study that popped up that said that the getting a payday loan makes it twice as likely an incidence of declaring bankruptcy, because it's so easy to get that payday loan and then lose track of that interest that you owe and how fast it's accruing. And then you're just paying this bill and maybe you're not even reaching the principal if you're paying a minimum. So now you just have this set bill of say $60, $70 a month that is mess up your entire cost structure, and then maybe something else happens. And so one of the things that is important to figure out, and I was going to get to this little, like a few cards down, but it's sort of organic now. Being in poverty, you know, a lot of times the clients we handle, their issues are going to be caused by poverty, or they're going to be made worse by poverty. So that payday loan example is one of those examples. So how many United States citizens live in poverty? Well, as of 2017, it was 12.3% of the nation, or 39.7 million people. To give you an idea of the scale, think of the total population of Texas in 2017 was 27,236,443 people. So there are more people in poverty in the United States than all of Texas. So really think about that. Think about the worst rush hour you've ever seen in Houston. Just the worst. Like, I mean, talking about just bumper to bumper. There's just, if you say like I-10 is just backed up. Like, actually, I went to high school in Humboldt, so I have a pretty good idea of that. And I went to LSU for undergrad, so I'm very familiar with I-10. And so imagine that the worst traffic you've ever seen, multiply that by 10, and you're still not really seeing everybody in poverty in the United States. Just, it's hard to get your head around that number. And think about how many people in Texas live in poverty. It's 15.6% of the nation, I mean, of Texans. It translates out to about 4.2 million people. So we're gonna do a quick interactive population simulation. And so I'm gonna be asking questions, and I'm gonna see if you can answer for me. Now, since y'all aren't attending, I'm gonna be working with Kristen. She's gonna be selecting it. We're only gonna go through the first 10 days. I used to do the first month, but we were finding that was taking too long. So this is the poverty simulation. Now, Kristen, you're gonna be answering these questions.
Okay.
So let's see. The music's a little bit dramatic, but I like this presentation. So in this scenario, we've lost everything. We lost our house. We only have the last $1,000. We lost a job. In this scenario, you are 30 with one child.
Okay.
The child's 10. And so you're a single parent, so we got to figure out what job we need to get. So do we want the warehouse job, looking for a dependable, punctual, hardworking warehouse associate? Most people lift 20 pounds and have reliable transportation. That's $9 an hour for 12 to 7. Do we want to work at a restaurant? Experienced server needed at a casual restaurant with a fast-paced and fun atmosphere. Apply in person Tuesday through Friday, 2 to 5. That's $2.13 an hour plus tips, but your hours vary. Office temp, know your way around an office. Hiring for temporary workers all over the area. Administrative experience and attention to details a must. That's $9 an hour, but your hours vary. What are we thinking?
Ooh. I think I would probably go with the warehouse job,
Okay.
the second shift warehouse job, because I'm thinking my child maybe could go to aftercare and I could pick them up afterwards, and it's not a temporary job. So
exactly. So, and that's what, and I've done this scenario several times. That's what a lot of people end up selecting. So all that lifting, repetitive packing can be brutal on your body. It translates out to, after taxes, $306 a week. So the Affordable Care Act requires you to get health insurance. The good news, your child's covered by the state through Medicaid. The bad, you aren't. And keep in mind, in this scenario, you're 30. So like I'm 37, so my check engine light, it's not on yet, but it's starting to blink every now and then. But you're still, you're still bulletproof and invisible, as my band director would say from high school. So gold plan, do we want $329 a month, $15 copay? Silver plan, $268, $25 copay. But by the way, what is a gold plan? The gold plan shouldn't have a copay at all. It's gold. Right.
Everything should be covered.
Yeah. And then the bronze plan, $232 for a $45 copay, or do you want to opt out for $12 a month?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to opt out. I can't afford it.
Yeah. And you have proven a lot of healthcare policy experts correct.
Yeah. Yes.
So when the penalty for not buying insurance is so low compared to the cost of coverage, it's no surprise that low-income workers are opting out altogether. So we got to find a place to live. Now, I think we all know that this is not, this is actually decent for rent costs.
Yes.
It's like, I remember when I started law school in 2006, I paid $600 a month for my apartment, and now Austin is just insane. But you choose to live further away from your job, so your rent's lower, but your gas costs are higher. And it's something you see sociologically, because I think until about the mid 2000s, a lot of people with means, they weren't living in the inner city, but now they moved back into the inner city, and they're gentrifying as they go. And the exurbs are really rich people live in the exurbs. So what you're seeing now in American cities is a sort of donut hole of there's poverty sort of in the suburbs and near the suburbs. But what makes it even worse is those suburbs used to be funded with like property owners associations, things like that, and there's not as many taxes. So there's less services, there's less bus routes, especially in Texas. And it's actually funny, I'm going to say donut hole again, because another donut hole problem we see in legal aid is people who they make a little bit too much to qualify for legal aid, but they don't make near enough to hire an attorney. So the donut hole problem, donuts are just a problem regardless, is what I'm finding out. So your new apartment's too small for your stuff. You want to rent a storage unit, have a yard sale?
I'm probably going to have a yard sale.
Okay, none of that stuff is sparking joy.
Yeah.
We sold a bunch of stuff, but we only made $150. That's not nothing. That's something.
That's almost 1 month of health insurance, almost.
Exactly. You've been putting off doing laundry for weeks because you don't have a washer or dryer. Do you want to go to the laundromat? Wear dirty clothes.
I'm probably going to go to the laundromat.
Yeah. So your child's class is going on a field trip to the Natural History Museum. The trip costs $15. What do you want to do? Do you want to pay the money? Don't pay.
I'm going to pay it. Yeah. Got to let him go on a field trip.
Yeah. So your grandfather's passed away. The memorial service built several states away. Do you want to fly for the service, drive to the service, skip the memorial?
Oh my goodness. I guess I have to skip it. I'm sorry, Papa.
Yeah. I remember it wasn't a memorial service, but my cousin had a bachelor party in New Orleans, and I live in Austin. And they're like, you should just fly. I'm like, I'm not spending $500 on a flight.
Right.
I will drive. And
yeah.
So I drove like 9 hours. Yeah. I was just like, I spent, I think, $70 on gas each way. And I'm like, this is still better.
Right.
A bunch of friends are going to a free concert tonight, and you want to go, but you've got a kid to worry about. Do you want to get a babysitter or stay home?
No, I'm going to stay home.
Yeah. And one of the things, like, I'll say this as a relatively new father, we have a 2.5-year-old. The thing you don't realize, and if you're watching this, there might be some people that already have kids and you're in law school, but if you don't have kids, I think I'm very good at unsolicited advice, even when I'm talking to a recording. It's a talent. It's a curse of a talent, let me tell you. There are so many more expenses than you think when you have a kid.
Oh, yes.
The scenario is barely grasping, just like, oh, they need this appointment. That's $70 a week.
They need food and diapers and toys and clothes and so on and so forth.
Take food off of your plate.
Yeah, they can't eat the same thing you eat, especially, babies. So yeah, it's very, very expensive.
Yeah. So everyone's pitching in for a lottery pool. What do you want to do? Play $10, play, don't play.
No, I'm out. Don't play.
It may seem like a waste of money, but for people like you who have no 401k or savings, it can look like an investment in a better future. So we got paid. So we actually made it pretty good. We got $591 right now. But let's imagine the scenario. Let's say you had a custody order, and now the non-custodial parent, say there was a problem. It's September 13th as of this recording. And say there was some static, say there was some hurt feelings over summer visitation. And because of it, he has now decided to file a modification. And a modification, so anybody watching this that doesn't know, that's a separate cause of action to change the terms of a prior custody order. So he's filed that, and you got to respond, and you have no idea how to respond, and you're not a lawyer. And you're like, okay, what do I do? Well, you say you go try to talk to an attorney, any attorney that's being as nice as possible. And this is so nice that it's below the amount to keep their lights on. Say they charge you $80 an hour. Any attorney is going to take, at the very least, to really do a proper answer and understand your case, they're going to take at least 4 hours or 5 hours to do a response. So that's 80 times 5. I think that's what, $400?
$400, yeah.
So that has completely broken your budget, and that's just the start. It's going to only go up once you get to discovery, when there's so many issues that you're going to have to deal with. And so That's how, dealing with the legal system can really put people in deeper poverty. And one of the things, if they contacted y'all over chat when you volunteer, you could give them a little bit of we have these things called guides that, let's see if I can find it. Let's see a good one. We have a guide to respond to a modification. So you just go to Family Divorce and Children. You would go to, I think in child support, or child custody visitation. Let's see. I need to respond to a modification case. And this gives them answers to quick questions. So like, what is a modification case? It tells them what does it mean to be served with court papers in the modification case. It tells them exactly what that means. But they can also go to instructions and forms, and it gives them step-by-step instructions. It really breaks it down to tell them how to do this. And here's an answer form they can file. And it tells them how to do it. So that right there, that one thing saves them about $400. So you're gonna be providing people real help. One of the things that we measure our services by is cost avoidance. So we help them avoid that cost because it's just a response. It's not even a counter petition at this point because they wouldn't even need that because of a modification. They would keep it the same most of the time. And one of the things that we have to do when we write this content, the content we're providing, this is not just, hey, we found the law and we reproduced it on the website. We find the law, we understand it, then we synthesize and translate it for the user. Because one of the things that, one of the ways is like, I supervise legal work commonly. And one of the things when I look at, and this is just another bit of unsolicited advice, whenever you don't understand a legal topic, say you're writing a memo, people can sometimes tell, I know I can tell when somebody doesn't understand the legal topic when they stick so close to the statute and the case law. If all you do is quote the case law and quote the statute, but you don't explain it, that tells me you don't understand it. And so the content we provide on Texas Law Help is really stuff that we've spent a lot of time researching and figuring out so that we can provide it easy for the users without any legal background. And that actually brings me to one last point real quick before we dive into the chat portion. The help you provide by volunteering is not just the help you provide directly to a user. There's a multiplicative effect because every hour you're online is an hour that one of our attorneys can be offline of chat and writing more content. So for instance, we have a guide that we produced right when the COVID-19 crisis started that covers how COVID-19 and those concerns affect visitation. Because when the COVID-19 crisis started right around March 13, 2020, which is right around spring break, and we were seeing a lot of questions about that. So we just had a few attorneys take some time and write it. And this publication has gotten, at the very least, I think it was like 30 to 50,000 hits in a year. So this is help that you're gonna be helping more people than you directly help, if that makes sense. So I really, really urge you to volunteer because we really need your help. So I'm gonna go back to the presentation. Does that make sense, Kristen? Did I mess it up?
No, that makes perfect sense.
Okay, just making sure. So we've gone over a lot already. And one of the things I like to do in a presentation is I like to sort of skip around and go sort of where the dialogue takes me. So there's a lot we've already covered. To give you sort of more background about Texas Law Help, that was the site I've just been on. It's a website that we administer. It's part of our client empowerment practice area. The site provides free, easy to understand legal information and resources, like I showed you that form. So this is something that was written by, I think this one might have been, this was written originally by a Travis County Law Library attorney, but I think we modified it recently, but I'm not sure. But I know that we write a lot of our forms, but we work very closely with other partners. So Texas Law Help is a project that we administer, but we have over 45 partners that provide a lot of content, and we're extremely thankful for them. And so to give you context of how many people come to the site, when I started in 2010, we were getting about 220,000 people using the website a year. In 2020, we had over 3.8 million visitors. So that's more than a 10-fold increase. And we had over 13 million page views. So, people come to the site for real help. In the time you allow us to be writing content, people are going to be getting real help from that. So what is LiveChat? LiveChat allows for real-time chat assistance for site visitors. It's a lot like Google Chat or Facebook Messenger. For somebody my age, I'd probably say AOL Instant Messenger, but unless you're like my age, you don't really know about that. I don't think it's around anymore. So through LiveChat, we reduce barriers to find information and provide referrals to organizations that can help them more. So since we launched LiveChat in 2010, we've had over 100,000 chats. The first year, we only did 584 chats. The next year, we did 3,165 chats. The year after that, in 2012, we did 4,184. In 2020, we did over 29,000 chats. And volunteers did over 9,000 of those. So y'all are providing real help. And I'm just extremely proud of the volunteer work y'all do. So before we go further, let me go ahead and just log in and chat. I want to show you the chat system. So it's all a web-based system. I'm just going to go to livechat.com, click login, and I'm going to just type in my email. It's all done through your email address. And I'm going to just type in my password. So when you log in, you're going to get to this orientation screen. And it's going to say, good afternoon, your name. So Elliot, it shows you how many people are online. So there's 933 people on the website. How many chats are going on? There's 9. There's no tickets because we don't use that. And there are 10 agents logged in. And when you volunteer, you're going to be an agent. So these are all right now. The volunteer semester hasn't started. The volunteer semester for our volunteers starts on the 20th of September. So next Monday. So right now, these are all attorneys and paralegals. If they have the little scales icon, that's an attorney. If they have this sort of these 2 mountains in water, it looks like icebergs, maybe that's a paralegal. That's a staff paralegal. But if this is the icon y'all will have, it's sort of this neon triangle. So we have a lot of volunteers. If you want to volunteer, all I need from y'all is a signed volunteer agreement that I can send out if you contact me if after watching this you want to volunteer. And I also need a copy of your resume just so that we can certify for our funders, such as the Texas Access to Justice Foundation, that you will qualify to volunteer. I'm not going to show you the chat screen just yet because you haven't signed that voluntary and confidentiality agreement. So I don't want to breach anybody's confidentiality because if they're on this site, there's sort of a quasi expectation of confidentiality. So I don't like to show that unless we get that signature from y'all. Big thing to think about real quick. I like to talk about this really even in an orientation is when you log in, you're going to be set to currently not accepting chats. You can still take a chat with this setting. It just means that you're not going to be responsible for the button showing up on the website. So right now, Colette, she's an attorney in her office. She is, so to speak, because we're all still remote, she is set to accept chats. And when even one agent is set to accept chats, the button is going to show up on the website for everybody that comes to the website. So if even one person is set to accept chats, almost like, because there's 930 people currently on the site, 930 people see that there's LiveChat available. And so if you log in one day and it says accept chats and nobody else is online, then you're going to be the only one answering those chats, and that's going to set up bad expectations. Does that make sense, Kristen? Am I explaining that?
Yes. Right. No, that makes sense. One person is there. The customer using the website sees that there's somebody available, even though it's only one person.
Yeah. And before we go further, I just want to thank Kristen again for standing in and being my student here.
Happy to help. Happy to help. And then this is helpful, I think. So when students watch the replay, they can kind of troubleshoot the scenario. So just let me know whenever you need. I'm here. I'm here paying attention.
I really, really appreciate it. And if you do choose to volunteer, we're going to have a training tomorrow and a training Thursday. But I'm going to be recording those trainings, so you can just watch them when you get a chance. And in those trainings, I will go into a lot more detail to just the real rubber hits the road of here's how you chat, here's the functions, so that you know exactly how to do it. Because my job as your volunteer supervisor is to make volunteering as easy as possible. It's sort of that Jerry Maguire, like, help me help you. I'm here to help you help others. To set yourself to accepting chats, you just click this little slider. To set yourself to not accepting chats, you click it back to where it shows red. So I'm not accepting chats. What I'm going to do is, before I go further, I'm going to go ahead and log out. If you do volunteer, make sure to log out at the end of every shift. It just solves a lot of problems. You never want to get accident. Like this program, it's a pretty solid program, but it does have bugs. It's a program. It's built by humans, so it does have bugs, and sometimes it can make you look like it can switch you to accept chats without you even knowing. So it's good to just log out at the end of your shift, So I'm gonna click log out, it's gonna log me out. Also, if you end up volunteering, don't download the desktop application or the phone app. Those are bugged. Just use the web application. So that's chat. Let's see. So your role as a volunteer, what are you going to do? So you're going to be providing information and resources. You're not going to be providing advice. But to do that, and I've done both, and I can tell you it's actually a little harder, just to be completely honest with you, it's a little harder to provide information and resources and not advice, because once you know the legal issue, it's easier just to go, hey, do this, this, and this. When you provide information and resources, you have to know what is contained in the information you're providing. So for instance, if you were going to provide information on how coronavirus concerns affected visitation rights, you can just go, you can scroll through this guide right here and say, okay, well, say they're asking, well, what if I'm afraid of sending my child for visitation because the other parent really doesn't take care of them and is not really concerned about COVID, but I am. Well, this goes over it, and so you provide that. So that's not providing advice, that's providing information. But if you yourself were like, say, hey, you should send them because of X, Y, and Z, anytime you're saying you should, I would, you need to, that's when you get into advice. But it's never going to be advice to provide just the information, like the link. Does that make sense, Kristen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fine distinction, so I just like to make sure. So your role as a good volunteer, it's sort of the same as when you're handling just a legal issue. If you're doing a legal analysis, number one, you cannot spot a legal, you can't provide help if you don't gather the facts and know what's going on. It's something that a lot of lawyers, frankly, sort of skip over. They're so anxious to get to the analysis, they don't actually gather each and every fact they can. So the first thing you're gonna do is you can gather facts and issue spots. So your most important role is to gather facts by listening to the visitor and spot their issue. You are gonna be surprised at how willingly the people you talk to are gonna give you their facts, because we built up a high level of trust in the community. So they know we're not gonna judge them and we're just there to help them, and it's free. But the big thing is make sure to let them tell you enough so that you understand what they're dealing with before you provide information on the resources. One thing we used to see in volunteers, they were so anxious to help people, they wouldn't actually let people tell them everything's going on, and then they would provide something that would be inadvertently wrong. Another thing is you can't really spot the issues if you don't understand the law that they're dealing with. Now, the good news on that front is 90% of what you're going to be dealing with, I actually say 80% now, is going to be family law. About 10% is going to be eviction currently, and then the other 10 is going to be like consumer, a few other things. So we actually have what we call an independent review process. And so it's a 4-hour sort of course of study that we just ask that you read over some things before you start. And we don't think you're going to learn all of family law in 4 hours. It's not possible. But what it will do is give you just a bit of a depth of vocabulary. So you're going to know, for instance, if somebody says, hey, I want to change my custody order, that's not an appeal, that's a modification, sort of that distinction. And so we ask you to review we have like 5 different sort of guides that we ask you to review that we've written. And the only one that's long is this LiveChat guide that we have open right now. The other ones are pretty short. And the only thing we ask you to read completely is the Family Law Handbook. It's done by the Houston Bar Association. It's a wonderful guide. It can give you a real good sort of foundation for the vocabulary of family law. And again, we're not asking you to learn all of family law in 4 hours, but so you have an idea of some of the vocabulary. So like, for instance, what is an informal marriage or a common law marriage? An informal marriage, sometimes called a common law marriage, can be created when a man and a woman, this is actually, I think this should be updated, so just 2 spouses, register an official document of marriage at the county clerk's office, or they can do an informal marriage if they agree to be married, live together in Texas as husband and wife, and represent to others that they're married. So this is just going to give you a bit of a depth so you can spot the issues, so that you know what they're talking about. As a part of the independent review process, there's a few other things we actually just sort of skim through, so you don't have to read the entire thing, but just sort of look through it, get familiar. In that independent review process, you get 4 hours of volunteer credit. So if you contact me and you certify that you have watched this orientation, and then you watch the training, you get 2 hours you get 1 hour for each of those, so that's 2. And then you get 4 more hours for doing your independent review, which you have to do before you start. So you get 6 hours of volunteer credit before you even take your first chat. And here's the thing, I trust y'all because y'all are professionals. Y'all are professionals in training, but to be in law school, you have to be a professional, period. So y'all are professionals, so I trust you. And so I don't do a quiz. So it's all honor system. You tell me you did it, I trust you, and I trust that you did it. But I can tell you right now, it's going to be easier for you to volunteer if you do your independent review. So once you spotted the issue, you can help you just find information. You're going to go on Texas Law Help. You can go to the website. And you're going to go through sort of you're going to use like the topics. So say they're dealing with like debt collection. You go to money and debt. Go to debt collection and payday loans. And you're going to try to find the relevant information that can help them. One of our best guides, we actually had this written, I'm really proud of this guide. We had it written by a college student back in 2013. Alternatives to bankruptcy, and it really breaks down, you know, what's a secured debt, what's an unsecured debt, what's your options, are you judgment proof, can you negotiate? This was done by a college student, then she went to law school, and now she is a practicing attorney at a big firm, and she's just amazing. And so if you ever want to write some content, let me know. We really love to have students write content. We find they do a great job, and it's just something cool to know. Like, it's something like, I've written a lot of content on the site myself, and it's something that's just a really good feeling to know, hey, I made a difference in somebody's life I don't even know because they found the content that I've written. So you help users find information and you provide the appropriate referrals. So most LiveChat users are going to need some type of legal help in addition to the resources you provide them from our website. So we're going to be, the system is going to give you their zip code to chat with us. They have to do what's called a PreChat survey. And I'm going to show you, I can just show you that right now. So I'm going to go to this, click this button. So this is the PreChat survey. And as a part of it, they have to give us their zip code. And once we have their zip code, I can just go to zip code lookup, and I have a link in the guide for the best site for this. I can just find one informally right now. So my parents' zip code is 77346. So that's going to be, let's see, this should be Harris County. This isn't actually the best site. Let me find a better one. Here we go. This is a better one. So my parents' zip code is 77346. That's going to tell me it is in Harris County. Did it say it? Ah, okay. I got a better one. I'll show you later. This is embarrassing. Let's see.
Worries. You want me to give you the TSU zip code?
Yeah.
77004.
77004. Okay, give me 1 second. I have it in here. Ah. One second. There we go. So you use a site like this and you like 77004, and that will give you the county. So let me see. Oh, 008 is close enough. So it's Harris.
Yep.
So there are 254 counties in Texas, so we don't expect you to know how that relates, but in your training, there'll be a link that this will be the best one to use. So once you have their county, you go to our legal help finder. So legal help directory, and you should click legal assistance, so legal help directory, and you put in what they're dealing with. So say they're dealing with money and debt collection, and we're just going to go down to Harris County. Go and we click search, and you can just, and it's going to show them their options for legal aid. These are all different organizations and how to get a private attorney if they need it. So this right here, this link is a static link. It does not change. So you can copy that link and paste it directly into the chat so they have a directory of legal aid in the area that can help them. And I'm sorry for that hiccup. Usually I can find a county lookup a little faster. So your next role, and this is the most esoteric role, is going to be to encourage users, but at the same time, set fair expectations for self-representation. So some people that come in, they are completely confident. They're like, just give me a form. I don't need to talk to you. I just want to get a form and I'll be on my way. So I had somebody years ago that was like, well, I want a form to sue British Petroleum. And I'm like, well, you're like, for what? Well, he's like, well, the gas prices are too high and I think they're gouging us, so I'm going to sue them. And I want the form to sue them. And I'm like, well, we don't have a form for that. It's very complicated. And I went through and I illustrated, what problems they're going to run into. On the other side of that, we got people that are so nervous about the legal system that they think they have no rights. So you have to really sort of split the difference between explaining, look, you have rights, but there's a difference between having rights and enforcing those rights. So you want to encourage users, letting them know, hey, you have rights, but set those expectations of, okay, but the rubber hits the road when it's time to actually enforce those rights. So for instance, I'm handling a few cases right now, and one of them, we might be trying to get spousal maintenance. And so, it's one thing to say, hey, I think you qualify. It's another thing to say, spousal maintenance is also known as alimony, by the way. It's another thing to actually go and get it and prove it. So that's sort of the difference that you sort of have to embrace and explain to users sometime. And explaining that difference is not advice. That's just a practical situation that you go, hey, the law says this, but I went to 4 years of college, I'm going to 3 years of law school to become an attorney. And so there's a difference between having those rights and exercising on them. And that moves us on to core volunteer values. The number one value we look for is compassion. Navigators, when you volunteer, you should be polite, respectful, and sensitive to the needs of users. Many are going to be in crisis situations. So they might come to you a little bit upset, frightened, angry, or even rude. A lot of times they've gone to libraries, law libraries, clerks' offices, and they haven't gotten any help, so they're very frustrated. Just make sure to respond in a non-judgmental and caring manner. And even if, what I've found is even if somebody comes at you a little hot, if you respond to them very calm, you can center them. And once they really understand that you're there to help them, it's like a switch gets flipped and they're like, oh God, thank you. I've been looking so long, and they really will be grateful. But now that being said, you never have to take abuse. If you feel like the user's getting out of hand, transfer to me and I'll be happy to handle the chat. And the same goes if you feel like the user's being like creepy or anything, let me know and I will take care of it. Core volunteer value, ethics, just make sure to not provide advice. And one of the things about this volunteer program is I'm gonna be able to supervise each and every chat you handle. And it's not to bust you, it's not to be like, oh, you gave the wrong resource. It's just to support you. One of the values of being in law school is, it may not seem like this right now, and I understand because it didn't seem like that to me when I was in law school. But right now, when you volunteer to a clinic or something like that, you're still working with a net. And I'm your net on chat. And one of the great things about working with a net, it's where you can really learn. Because, I didn't do any clinics when I was in law school, and I really regret it. So if you can do a clinic, I'll put it this way, if you're watching this, and if you can choose between a clinic and this program, do a clinic. It's going to be more useful to you over the course of your career. Now, if you can do both, I say volunteer, but your studies come first. But just do something to where when you're learning, you don't have, hey, if I make a mistake, I'm going to be fired, because that's a lot more pressure. You want to learn as much as you can while you're in law school, so that when you get out, and they call it a baby attorney, when you're your first few years, you're not having to do all that learning under all that pressure. Does that make sense, Kristen? Am I explaining it right?
Yes, very good advice.
Okay. And I don't want to speak out of turn. I know y'all talk to them. It's something I try to tell people all the time. So another core volunteer value is consistent quality service. So we're going to get between 30 and 120 requests for help over chat a day. So we want to make sure that, and to be clear, y'all aren't going to handle all of them, by the way. Most people volunteer for a 2-hour shift each week, 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours. And so say you take a 2-hour shift, you're probably going to be handling maybe 4 chats a shift. So, but even then, we want to make sure that the person that gets us on Thursday at 3 p.m. when we're a little bit tired gets the same level of service as when they get us at 10 a.m. on a Monday when we're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So to do that, we have a bunch of publications that can guide you on how to do this. So for instance, this is our frequently used publications page. So, Texas Law Help has over 1,000 pieces of content. So we don't expect you to learn all that right away. So we put together this document, which has links to all the best pieces of content on the website. And and the things that are used the most often, and it's organized by subject. We also have our live chat volunteer guide, which can really guide you through nuts and bolts, how to do it. And we have a few more guides that can really help you too. Volunteer benefits, and we're getting towards the end, to wrap up. So all the time you're online and available to chat with a visitor counts towards your pro bono time, not just the time you're actually chatting. So for instance, if you volunteer on Mondays from 10 to 12, say 1 week it's a slow week and you only have 2 chats, you're gonna get 2 hours of credit. Say it's a busier week next week and you handle 5 chats, you can get 2 hours of credit. So you get credit for being online. Now that being said, you have to take at least 1 chat per shift if possible, because it's very rare, but I keep an eye just to make sure nobody's free writing, because y'all don't get the benefit of that if you're not actually talking to people. But you know, depending on how busy it is, how many users we have online, I have given credit like on a case-by-case basis. If I'm like, well, it was a slow day and they were trying to take chats, but the other people were just a little bit faster to take the chat, then I might give credit. But again, you got to have at least one chat a shift. Remote, all work can be done from your home or office, or basically anywhere with an internet connection. This was this way even before COVID hit. Malpractice insurance provided for each and every volunteer on LiveChat. We have not had to use it yet. I'm going to knock on all the wood, but it's provided. And then education and training, just that practical exposure to the law. I cannot tell you just how useful it's going to be when you get out. And it's such a cliche to say, but the practice of law is a lot different, at least when I was in law school, from what I remember law school as. I know law school has been making strides lately to really change that paradigm, which I think is great, but it's just so different. And the more exposure you can get to just that everyday practice of law, the better you're going to be. And then before volunteering, like I said, we need a copy of the signed volunteer and confidentiality agreement. It's just a 1-page agreement. And we just need a copy of your resume or your LinkedIn page. We also have attorneys that volunteer, and for them, we just ask for their bar number. Okay, I've already shown you all of this. I'm just going through this. Okay, whispers. Whispers are not just a Motown band from the 60s. I don't know if anybody gets that reference, but if you do and you're watching this, congratulations.
I got it.
Okay. So whispers allow the TLSC supervising attorney, that's me, to provide you with tips on how to handle the chat. So if you look at the screenshot, the text in gray is a whisper I'm sending to the volunteer. That was Megan at the time. And she can, the big thing is the user doesn't see what's in gray. Only the agent sees it and I see it. And so it gives them sort of a tip of, hey, give them this, this, and this. But the big thing is, since the user can't see, you have to reproduce it to the user. And also you can't whisper back to me on chat. So that's why I provide my cell phone number, and I'll provide it again right down here. So if you want to text me back, that's a better way to get in touch with me right away if you have a question about the whisper. I talked about COVID-19 in live chat. We're seeing a lot of issues with that still. So we have an entire section that we've made just on COVID-19 in live chat. It's our legal information hub. Let me go ahead and click it. There we go. And so it covers the variety of issues dealing with right now. So for instance, property and landlord tenant. So it's like eviction and information and resources. So rent assistance, we're seeing a lot of stuff right now going on with that. So we have an entire sort of section on that. Let's see. So training process. So to volunteer, you have to do that 1-hour training webinar. I'm going to do one. The first one for this semester is tomorrow. I'm going to record that one and I will make it available so that if you want to volunteer, just email me and I'll put it down in here. And Chris is going to send out my email address too. But you can email me at efontanet@tlsc.org and livechat@tlsc.org. And just let me know you want to volunteer, and I'll send you a link to the training. You got to watch that, and you're going to do the 4-hour independent review. It's optional for volunteer attorneys, but not for law students. And then you get 4 hours of credit. If you watch this orientation and that training, you get another 2. So that's 6 hours before you take a chat. And then the next stage of learning is just to do. That's one of the things that it took me a long time to learn as an attorney. The best way to learn how to do something is to do it. And you can read all these guides, you can read these CLEs, and the CLEs are extremely helpful. I really recommend getting into like taking as many CLEs as you can on whatever area of law you go into. But there's nothing like just doing it, because there's so much in the law that's not written down. It's frustrating how much there is, but there's so much that's not written down that you just got to do it to learn. And so that's what we do in the program. Volunteer schedule, so you can volunteer from Monday through Thursday from 10 to 4. And we're offering for the first time ever Saturday hours. So you can volunteer from 10 to 4 on Saturdays as well. And I'll be online supervising on Saturdays too. So, and usually people volunteer from 2 to 3 hours a week. You can split your shifts if you need to. So you can say, for instance, say you have an opening every day from 1 to 3. So you can volunteer Monday, Wednesday, Thursday from 1 to 2 and get 3 hours of credit each week. Does that make sense, Kristen? Did I explain that right?
Yes, plenty of options.
Yeah. And so that's the presentation. This is my contact information. Put my cell phone again down here. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. We would love to have you volunteer. And if you took the time to watch the entire presentation when it wasn't live, I really appreciate you. I hope everything's going well for you. And thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you so much, Elliot.
Thank you so much.